Right now, share it. When after Lakshmi Madam's talk, I just have a brief presentation.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Lakshmi. How are you?
Sir. Yeah, sir. Actually, like we'll start at 11 sharp, sir.
Yes.
Yeah. So mine will be just 2-3 minutes, and then we'll introduce, and you can start, sir. Directly, sir.
So it will be maximum of 10 minutes. Is it okay?
Yeah,
or?
no problem. Yeah, we planned like that only, sir. We'll go as per the plan, sir. Okay, sir. Right. Sir.
Sure.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So right now, I only thing is that time sharing is at Srikanth, at that time we will be giving this. Right.
I think it should not be a problem, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, things will happen. It is already tested once, no, sir. Will be that. No. Okay, sir.
Thank you. Video also.
Starting, sir. Okay, sir. పాజిటివ్, ఎందుకంటే నేను ఇంకా స్టార్ట్ చేయలేదు. 11 o'clock స్టార్ట్ చేస్తాను. అది గుర్తుండడానికి ఎప్పుడు ఇట్లే మీరే అంటే ఎవరైనా గుర్తు చేస్తారండి.
Morning, Lakshmi.
Sir, good morning, sir.
All are there?
Yeah. Just in 2 minutes, sir. We'll just.
Yeah. I can unmute. Mute, brother.
I think it's okay, sir.
Okay. Because
Yeah, no problem. But your voice is slightly low, sir. Maybe.
Is it? My voice is low?
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah. Let me check. Otherwise, mine.
I think it's fine, madam.
It's okay, na?
It's okay, madam. We are able to
Okay.
hear.
Yeah. Sure. Okay.
Awesome. Okay. Excuse me, sir.
Madam, should we start?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, ma'am? Okay. Yeah, good morning, everyone. I thank you all for joining this two-day webinar on IoT security, which we call it as WISE. And it is collaborative, organized by Center for Development of Advanced Computing, CDAC, Hyderabad, and Society for Electronic Transactions and Security, SETS, Chennai, and in collaboration with Information Security Education and Awareness Project. So this is a two-day sessions. From today and tomorrow, we'll be having the sessions. We have eminent speakers from academia, industry, CDAC, and SETS. So if you look at the agenda of the thing, we have Kamakoti sir who will be joining us at 12:45 today. He'll be giving the keynote. There's a slightly big change in the agenda. So the first session will be taken by Mr. Mahesh Patil sir. Later on, it will be continued by Nalini. And after that, Kamakoti sir will be taking over. So this is the agenda for today's session. So with this, I request our director, Madam Lakshmi Ishwari, Madam, to give the welcome address to all the participants.
Thank you, Srikanth. Dear panel members and participants, very good morning and warm welcome to you for this two-day webinar on IoT security planned during 28th and 29th August 2020. This webinar is organized jointly by Center for Development of Advanced Computing Hyderabad and Society for Electronic Transactions and Security Chennai in collaboration with Information Security Education and Awareness Program executed at MeitY, CDAC, and funded by Ministry of Electronics and IT. So as you are all aware, IoT security is an area concerned with securing the connected embedded devices and networks in the Internet of Things and their operations. So in this webinar, we will listen to the experiences of eminent speakers from academia, industry, CDAC and SETS who are working in the domain of IoT security. So today we are honored to have Professor V. Kamakoti, IIT Madras, for kindly accepting to deliver the keynote address. So as Srikanth indicated, sir will be giving his keynote address at a later point today. And also we are privileged to have with us Dr. N. Sharachandra Babu, Executive Director, SETS Chennai, who would be delivering the theme address. A warm welcome to you, sir. And with your motivation only, we have initiated this particular event. I also welcome Sri Arvind Tiwari, Sang Innovate for this two-day webinar. We thank you for kindly accepting to share your rich experience in this webinar through your day two keynote address. And I also welcome all the speakers from CDAC and SETS, Mr. Mahesh Patil, Mr. Haribabu, Mr. Nalini, and Mr. Abhishek. Thank you all for kindly accepting to share your experiences. And once again, a warm welcome to you all and hope you all enjoy the sessions. And before closing my remarks, actually, I would like to thank Mr. Srikanth, Mr. Naresh, and the entire ISEA team for organizing this particular event. So now I take the privilege of introducing Dr. N. Sharachandra Babu, who will be delivering the theme address. Dr. N. Sharachandra Babu has joined as Executive Director SETS Chennai on 4th December 2017. Dr. Sharath obtained his BTech from JNTU College of Engineering, Kakinada, MTech from REC Warangal, and PhD from IIT Delhi. So he has considerable experience of over 3.5 decades in R&D, project implementation and coordination, education and training. Prior to joining SETS, he worked in CDAC as the Executive Director, CDAC Bangalore, and Founder Director at CDAC Hyderabad. He worked at Department of Electronics, Government of India, so presently known as Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology at various levels. He contributed to telecom sector while working at R&D switching division of the Indian Telephone Industries Limited, Bangalore. So he also worked as faculty at REC Warangal, presently called as NIT Warangal. So request you, sir, to kindly deliver the theme address of this particular webinar on IoT security.
Good morning. Welcome you all to this two-day webinar on IoT security. Thanks to Lakshmi for introducing me. I think it's a very good opportunity to all of us during this kind of a pandemic time to get connected and sharing the knowledge that various organizations are having. I have to thank CDAC Hyderabad and ISEA for their continuous efforts in this knowledge sharing exercise. And SETS, as you know, is working for Society for Electronic Transactions and Security, mainly working on cyber security in the area of hardware security, cryptography, and network security. We thought we would also join CDAC and share some of our thought processes. So that is the culmination of this two-day webinar. And I also thank to Professor Kamaputi and Professor Arvind Tiwari for their accepting this one. I briefly make a small presentation, although number of slides may be more, but I thought IoT, I would like to give the starting from introduction to the IoT and coming out with the need of IoT security. Yes. Yeah, I think Srikanth, permission for sharing.
Shrikant?
Naresh, can you give permission to sir?
Done.
Sir, you can share now, sir.
Yeah. So this webinar, as it is focusing on IoT security, I just thought IoT, it is considered to be billions of devices getting connected. The entire world is connected, right from physical systems to the virtual systems. It's a kind of a good interface, a kind of a converging various technologies and making sure that the technologies would be helpful to the mankind. The entire thing is happening only because of the feature size of the semiconductor device is coming down, and we can see that more or less before it affects the quantum effect, it can go up to by next year to 3 nanometers. Right now, 7 nanometers is definitely commercialized. So this is actually allowing many of the functions. If you see the diagram here, a lot of things that are otherwise we keep it, calendar, desktop, and your timetables, various activities that you normally do are all becoming part of a single device. And this is all possible because of the miniaturization. So now I think this is actually a smartphone, right? The Internet of Things we have been talking, I think thanks to late Mark Weiser of Palo Alto Xerox company, who actually come out with an idea way back in 90s as a specialized elements of hardware and software connected by voice, radio waves, and infrared will be so ubiquitous that no one will notice their presence. That is the concept of ubiquitous computing and leading to the pervasive computing. And later, the name of IoT has come coined by Kevin Ashton, who is co-founder and executive director of the Auto ID Center. He defined IoT as Internet of Things is a scenario in which objects, animals, or people are provided with unique identifiers. This is a very important thing. As you want to connect everything in Internet of Things, you need addressing. IPv6 would help us in this scenario, and the ability to transfer data over a network without requiring human to human or human to computer interaction. So we are looking at machine to machine interaction also. And things are various things. It could be a refrigerator, it could be a smart power meter, it could be a water meter, it could be your switch to connect your geyser, anything to your own smart devices or your wearable devices on your body. So many things would become part of the things. So now we also talk about Internet of Everything. So finally, the idea of them was the devices have to become like smart dust. For example, the idea was to go in a helicopter and spray these devices such a way that they automatically configure themselves into a network and they don't even need batteries, or they need very, very ultra sensitive, small batteries which will come for a number of years and so on. So this is another technology. If you talk about IoT because resources are quite conserved, so you need to make sure that we have enough, the technology that would work with that should take care of the constraints on the resources, especially in the power and computational powers, right? So this is just to give you, IoT comes to anything. We know that it is Internet of Things and any place and any time. Okay, this is the kind of a thing. And today's scenario, and we are talking about online courses and telemedicine, everything, wherever you are, you get connected. These are all possible because of this technology, which is proliferating. And the technologies that support it is sensors and actuators, one side, and the computation that is processing and various devices and local location tracking and identification of the device and the communication. Communication can be Wi-Fi, it could be Bluetooth low energy, or it could be Zigbee at a lowest level, and so on and so forth. This is just to give you a list of applications. There is transportation and logistics, healthcare, smart environments, personal and social futuristic. These are all the applications in which IoT scenarios. You can see that there's a lot of smart systems, smart parking, smart home, smart grid, the smart lighting, smart cars. Everything is becoming part of the IoT application scenarios. So, and a lot of, if you see the root of it is the lot of technologies. If you see the way back 3 decades back, we were talking about for a distant communication, a VHF kind of a communication, talking about 1200 bits per second. Today, we are talking about megabits, and with 5G, we'll reach the gigabits of transmission speed. So the change over a period of time, the technologies, especially the communication technologies and the processing technologies, were easily available at an affordable cost, and also providing high bit rate and so on, low latency networks. The applications were also encompassing to the real-time networks. That's why you say IoT becomes part of IT-OT kind of an environment, information technology and operation technologies. And we also talk about cyber physical systems. So IoT becomes a good interface when cyber physical systems, it is not compulsory that internet is part of it, but today's world, without internet, nothing is going to happen. But cyber physical systems, if they are connected to the internet, IoT will be playing a major role. So this is just to give you a few applications. Our friends in CDAC Hyderabad did a beautiful application called as Haritapriya to do the pest control in agricultural fields, putting a lot of sensors using the wireless sensor networks. They connected there with the Zigbee network, and from that there they used the 3G network and connected to a centralized server where a lot of models were working, and to see the pest control, whether the pest is happening, forewarn the farmers through a mobile in a local language. This is a kind of a complete application which was demonstrated in 25 villages of Andhra Pradesh, Kurnool, Guti. So this is, but it has to be scaled. Yes, scaling is one of the important aspects of the IoT thing that has to be taken up. CDAC has taken and proven the model. Similarly, the right side, you can see early fire detection system. Bottom, you can see smart water distribution system. And there is a portable weather monitoring station and a lot of devices that can go in, Bluetooth low energy and Wi-Fi kind of a thing, Zigbee, and also the sensor integrated networks. So those small devices you can see right hand bottom, they are the modes that are actually developed by CDAC. This is all CDAC's technology actually. I'm trying to encash because I was there involved in the beginning. You can see the CDAC team working in the field. There's a number of protocols because this is, as I told you, Zigbee, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth low energy, they all have their own stack. And you can see, I'm not going to get on to the things, but one of the things, these are all with low power and smaller range and low bit rate. LoRa is the long range application which has come up recently for covering few kilometers of distance and at a higher speed. So that is actually becoming popular in enhancing the reachability of IoT devices. So now, present to future, if you talk today, we are talking about drones flying and self-driving cars, buzzing, and upgraded human beings. We're all upgraded because technology is around us. Each person probably over a period of time, 50 devices you may be carrying over a period of time, right? So we are in the Internet of Life thing, and a lot of technologies like nanotechnology, vertical farming, artificial intelligence, robotics, 4D printing, all these things are becoming part of it, and IoT becomes the key technology to make these advances more meaningful in our day-to-day life. Okay, it is leading to Internet of Everything. You can see the cars automatically moving, signals, they're automatically stopping here. This is a kind of a scenario we expect in smart cities and smart environments. Already smart cities is in place and a lot of automation is happening using the IoT technology. So digital health is also becoming part of it, and wearable solutions would give you interesting solutions in the health sector, e-health, and a lot of standards are also coming in this. Okay. Self-driving cars without using laser sensor, allowing 3D map of its environment and so on, and a myriad of sensors creating machine-to-machine data. This is very important. Unless the devices talk to each other with the environment, you will not be able to have the self-driving car. There is another concept of concept cars. concept, because where the drivers or even the passengers' health, there is no driver. Passengers' health also would be monitored. If they are not well, automatically it reaches to the doctor, and it will also, the cars will take them to the hospital and so on. So such concepts are available now. And this another thing, digital twin is coming into the picture. And here there will be always a physical system, there is a virtual system, and whatever is happening in a physical system, it will also happen in a virtual system. People see in movies, right? When twins are there, if somebody was hit, other fellow also feel the pain. So something like that. So the twin will have all things that you do here. So in case of repair and maintenance, you can actually make use of this to the advantage. And here the technology is Internet of Things, industrial IoT, that is a industry 4.0 level technologies, and artificial intelligence, and very advanced analytics, predictive analytics, prescriptive analytics, all would become part of it. So I think this is what is happening present to future. And we are also heard almost 10 years back that there will be 50 billion devices as on date. But I don't think we reached that, but more it's promising. We are halfway through as per one statistics. As per other statistics of Gartner, it is relatively less, but they have taken only the areas of automation and enterprise kind of devices. But considering every device, probably these statistics given by security today are more reasonable, and it is reaching 35 billions by 2021 as per this. Okay? So less or more, but whatever initially people thought it will grow quite a faster rate, why it didn't happen is people consider that there are two things. Lack of standards, because a lot of devices that were going into the real-time systems and also into the computational areas, the standards were not, there are many kinds of devices, and so there are many standards or there are lack of standards. So people thought that IoT requires connecting many devices, so there is a need of frameworks which will connect different types of devices, but having a language that everything understands, so that the scalability and all things happen. And over and above, security concerns have grown. IoT devices are not designed with the security in place, so the security has become a major concern. So one of the I will talk very briefly on that. IoT standards now, there are many consortia, industry related. I'm not going into those things, but one thing I can see is IEEE has come out with a standard for harmonization of Internet of Things devices and systems, which normally used for sharing interoperability and security the messages. And there is a you can even see that there is a IEEE standard coming up with the framework of blockchain use in IoT. And you will also see that there is a TIPS framework, that is Trust, Identity, Privacy, Protection, Security, and Safety framework. And there is a standard establishing quality of data. See, one is the sensor, whether it is attacked or not, how to protect. But whatever data that you get, is it a correct data or not? This kind of a thing is also being thought of. So in IoT security, unlike other things, so here it is in normal system servers, network infrastructure, it's all fine. But here it's also getting connected to the physical systems. One way looking at is IoT systems are very crucial, and they may be, if anything happens and the systems are affected, it may lead to fatal in case of the process control automation industry where IoT is getting connected. And in addition to that, IoT devices are also helping the hackers to connect, especially if the IoT devices are not properly designed, if they have default passwords and they have IP addressability, all those devices by rogue systems can make a bot armies, and these armies through a control center can be made to attack something. So MeitY attack is somewhat that. There are a list of things here. I'm not going into this. These are most of the things will be discussed by the speakers. So I'm just not going into this. But there are a number of things. This is OWASP has come out with what are the things that we have to consider when you are talking about IoT. A lot of IoT risks are there. Okay. So this is a MeitY attack which has become popular, and it has become an eye opener for the people to see that okay, IoT devices are very good, but there is a security aspect, and so the thing that I was telling you, it has led to attack of DNS service by a provider DIN, and which finally affected PayPal, Twitter, etc. those days in 2016. So they opened an eye that okay, we need to be more careful in designing IoT systems. These are a lot of IoT security related topics. Once again, denial of service attacks, which normally happens to peak. Difficulties in PK infrastructure, there is a talk. There is an IoT trusted elements, how do you design and think. There is a talk, and a lot of tools will come where Mahesh Patil, Hari Babu, Kunal and Nalini and Professor Kamakoti and Dr. Arvind, they all will be speaking. So this is just to give you a feel that so IoT is there, it's proliferating and it's coming into the future applications in a very innovative way. But there are areas where we have to address, especially in terms of security. That is the objective of the theme of webinar on IoT security, is to look at what kind of technologies that we use, what tools that we have to work on, and how do you make sure that IoT environment is more trusted. So, and also because there are so many devices, can we use normal PKI infrastructure that we use for the conventional systems, or do we need to have specific standards? So those things will be discussed. Or we use the same crypto algorithms like RSA and elliptic curve cryptography, or do we go for some lightweight cryptography protocol because of the various issues involved? So these are some points that I thought during the theme I would bring, and now go to the organizers. So we are into Internet of Everything, and as the future of IoT is fast evolving, multifaceted support is being provided by important pillars like IoT standardization, and we probably now look at security by design. Okay, when we use IoT, security by design, just to extend that, privacy also becomes part of it because they're all getting connected to the human health and other things, where privacy becomes important. So privacy also needs to be considered, and security and privacy by design would be the future important theme in the design of IoT systems and IoT security. Thank you very much for the patient listening.
Sir, thank you very much, sir, for your insight and walk through the complete IoT standards, protocols, applications, and finally ending up with IoT security. I think you have set up the right track for all the speakers. Now I request all the speakers to look into this and take the sessions ahead. So now I think we'll start the session with the first speaker of this webinar, Mr. Mahesh Patil. Okay, let me take this opportunity to introduce Mahesh, sir. So Mahesh Patil is designated as Associate Director working in e-security R&D at CDAC Hyderabad. In the last 18 years of his professional career, he has developed a core competency in cybersecurity and embedded systems. He has expertise in mobile security and is currently involved in executing R&D projects based on blockchain and exploring the use of machine learning for detecting multi-stage attacks. He had various certifications, including certified ethical hacker, that is CEH7, SAN certified, that is GIAC reverse engineering malware, which is GREM, and EC Council certified security analyst, ECSA. He has also expertise in firmware development, board support packages, driver development, embedded and real-time operating systems, especially targeting porting and application development. He is the technical coordinator of flagship embedded system course of CDAC and has trained more than 1600 plus engineering graduates under this course. He has several national and international publications, and he was awarded Popular Employee at CDAC in the year 2016, better performing employee in the year 2012, and the best employee at CDAC Hyderabad in the year 2010. I think with this brief profile of sir, I think I request him to take over the session and enlighten the participants. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Srikanth. I'm going to talk about IoT security. Especially the challenging part in this session is like we'll have to merge in these two domains, and people are there from background specifically from IoT and another set of people from the background of security. We're trying to merge these two knowledges what we have as such. So I've tried my best to actually strike a balance between both these domains. So just a disclaimer before we start this session. This session is mainly for education purpose, and please look it from the perspective of awareness only. Whatever tools we discuss, use it ethically. Also, you're going to use it at your own risk as such. Also, try it only onto devices which you own or you're authorized to work on it, because it's not ethical to do it on devices which you don't own as such. Also, there could be certain side effects of using some of the tools which we mentioned, and your devices may break or things like that. So be careful by using those tools. So the whole outline is like we'll just discuss at a very top level about IoT architecture. Dr. Sarath already gave a very good introduction about the architecture aspect of it. We'll also look at the threat model or something called as like attack surface for the devices. And then look at from varied perspective of who's using the devices. Also lay down some security analysis methodology, which would at a very top level give us an insight on what are the various steps we need to perform while carrying out security analysis. And also dig into hardware components, devices, how do I identify devices, and look at the firmware extraction and analysis. So just to start at a little fun cartoon here, you see that it won't be very late, like people or the IoT devices start telling us to pay some ransom in order to give the service. Like for example, on the left-hand side, you have this fridge over here and you're hungry. You'll say like, why don't you pay me some money? Because there's some hacker who has actually hacked into your fridge, and then it's asking us to pay the ransom to open the door. But that's more on the lighter side, but there were some very serious attacks that were noted, like that were publicly known, which are very related to the IoT. Most prominent ones are the attacks related to nuclear power plants, which happened in German as well as Ukraine as such. On the automotive side also, you see that there were interesting attacks done by the duos Charles and Chris, where they hacked into the Jeep system. And looking at that hack, Chrysler also found similar things in their devices, and then they called in for the devices for bug fixes. Another interesting case study was the sniper's rifle, which was invented. So someone has invented an sniper rifle wherein it can actually precisely point to the target and then shoot in. The only mistake they made is like they made this rifle connected through a Wi-Fi network, which opened up the attack surface, and people were able to hack into it and then get the control over that system. So essentially, it shows that whenever we connect any devices to the internet, we'll have to take additional steps to make sure that these devices are secure as such. Just to give you a feeling of the layers across, people say that there is a sensing layer where all the sensors reside, pass through the information network layer, wherein these gateways typically convert the protocols, sometimes even do a little bit of processing at their end, and then connect to a larger infrastructure where the processing happens, and then serve the applications at the top layer. So it's typically a combination of real-time analytics, machine learning, sensors, embedded systems, gateways, all those kind of fairly complex kind of system. So this is the view from the perspective of IoT systems. But let's go and dig inside the device aspect of it. So when I actually look at IoT device and tear it down, you see that at a very abstract level, it will have a processor, it will have some capabilities of taking in inputs, processing it, and then pushing out the output. And it will have memories which would store the code, the data for the system. And above this hardware level, you typically have a system software and the corresponding application software. And all of this is then tied up through a communication radio or channels which allows you to talk to the actual infrastructure at the back end. Let's go and tear it down still further and look at its hardware. So here's an example of camera, where if you see like that's on the left hand side, you have the PCB ripped open actually, and you have a processor, you have a RAM that's plugged in, a flash device to have a non-volatile storage, and a communication engine like antenna like which works on 2.4. So probably it would be a Wi-Fi or a BLE. Just another teardown of a device which is very popular actually. So this is one of the smart speakers uh, which is available. I will not name it, but then you see that when you rip it open, you still have the similar component which are pushed across this PCB. And this is like one of the important aspects, like, because when you see these ICs that are there, especially the ones which are slightly bigger in size, they give you an idea in terms of what kind of components were used by this IoT devices, and it makes the analysis further easier. So like given, just imagine that someone comes up and then gives you this device actually. So what is that you would be more curious about, looking at from the perspective of security? And that curiosity is definitely which is going to lead to a successful security analysis or threat analysis kind of thing. So that's the reason this is our understanding of what is the IoT security, and it varies from three perspectives. So just imagine that I am a company, I'm manufacturing an IoT device, and I want to protect my device from malicious users and things like that. So what I am worried about is no one gets into my system and gets a control over it. So typically what I do is I carry out a vulnerability assessment. I also carry out some penetration testing to find out, okay, what are the vulnerabilities? If I am a attacker, what kind of mechanisms I can employ to enter into your or penetrate into your system. Sometimes I also want to look at the security of the systems and get some compliance and certification so that my users have a more confidence onto my system as such. So this is from the defender's perspective, where we are trying to see that, okay, what is the loopholes in my system and how I can protect it from malicious users. The second is from the perspective of threat actually. So you see that nowadays, like we are buying devices in and out, and when I install a device in my home or I install it in my enterprise, what is the threat perspective of that device? We have seen many cases wherein these devices have backdoors or they look like legitimate software, but at the background they are trying to disguise and then act as a malware kind of thing actually. So this is from the perspective of a threat. The third perspective would be the attacker's perspective, wherein he wants to actually get into the system, steal the information, or even use that system to carry out the DDoS attack, which Dr. Sarath also mentioned about the MeitY attack, which was DDoS attack. So these are the three perspectives, and all the three perspectives requires a set of tools to be used, but the only purpose or the end target is different actually. So I'm very sure that we should not end up into the last category because we are not into that. But said that, it is also important for us to know what tools these people use so that we can have the right mitigation strategies pushed into our system. So that's the reason knowing about tools is always good. And that's the reason why this session is focused on that. So just to give you an example of it, when I talk about the defender's perspective, after a vulnerability test, the report, they may say that, okay, you have an SSH port open, and you can always defend saying that, okay, I need to manage my device remotely. So that's why I have opened up this port. But it's also very important to make sure that this SSH port is not accessible on by any of the IP addresses all around the world actually. So I essentially what I'll have to do is to make it much refined in terms of the security. I can put a firewall rule and say that only from this IP if an SSH request comes, then allow the system. So just to give an other example from the threat perspective, there were some researchers which would find that a smart doorbell was accidentally sending data to some country. And these were tiny audio data packets which were routed to the server in that country. So this is from the threat perspective, because like I have put the device in my house or in my enterprise. Is it really behaving the way it has to, and it's not doing something additional which is not supposed to do? And from the attacker's perspective, I think MeitY is the most prominent attack that happened on IoT devices. And to your surprise, it is like only a set of 60 username and passwords, which were the default passwords, which were targeted by the hackers, and then they could get a control over them. So a very good use case that why we should not use default passwords for our IoT systems. So before we start looking at any IoT device, the threat model or the attack surface is an important aspect. The threat model is more from the perspective of the device manufacturer or a developer of a system. While attack surface, they go in hand, but attack surface typically tells the like if I am an attacker, like what kind of resources I can look at and then get into the IoT system. So when I look at the IoT system, you have the hardware, and definitely there are these peripherals which are very prominent, like I2C, SPI, UART, which you'll find in most of the IoT devices. Apart from that, unfortunately, before rolling out, people have to carry out testing. So they just leave open the debugging ports like JTAG, SWT onto the device PCBs, which are like channels for people to attack into this. We also have these communication modules which are prominently used in IoT as attack surface. This is more from the hardware perspective, but in the firmware also you have a set of components like the kernel, the binaries, the scripts which we use, which it can. Today, what has happened now is like even in terms of IoT devices, you can control them using mobile. So giving a mobile app is a very common trend that's happening whenever you sell a IoT device. And these hackers are slightly smarter. What they do is they go and reverse engineer this mobile application, which allows you to expose what is the protocol or what are the formats in which these IoT devices are exposing data. And that's how it becomes like very easy for you to get hold of the services that are running onto the device and what format they're exchanging information. Another attack surface could be like the place where this information is being sent on the cloud and the server infrastructure. If that is not well designed, there could be a potential access to whatever communication is that is happening between the IoT device and the cloud or the server infrastructure. So this gives a like very comprehensive idea about what are the different like attack surfaces for an IoT device. So let's go ahead and look at another perspective wherein when someone says that we have to do an IoT device security analysis, it can be either network connected, or someone may physically give you, if you are lucky, the IoT device itself. And in the third case, you may not have the IoT device itself and you need to carry out some analysis. So all the three are a little challenging, but from the three different perspectives, and we'll see like what kind of tools we can use for that purpose. So let's start with the network connected. So since like you cannot carry out this experiment onto the office network, I did a small experiment at my home, and I was like, really surprised that there are so many devices that get connected to internet from my home access point actually. So the tools which you're going to look at is like Nmap, BetterCap, and Shodan and others. So I just ran a simple scan to know that what are the devices that are connected on my access point at home. And I could see there is some Genexus router there. There are some other devices which are there. Like looking at those MAC addresses, maybe you can probably guess that what kind of device each of these would be there. And if you have guessed out something like this, your guesses are really correct. So wherein the Xiaomi was the mobile phone, Amazon was typically the Fire Stick, which is connected to my TV. I have a Google Home at home, wherein this box is what is the last entry which you find out here. We also had a smart bulb at home, which is expressive. So it's not precisely telling because expressive is uh, uh, SoC manufacturer, and most of the Wi-Fi devices get connected through their chipset. So essentially, it didn't tell me exactly which device it is, but at least like it told that it is a Wi-Fi connectivity through expressive. Further, when we actually once we get a hold of what devices are connected, just ran another scan to just look at. So nmap is the tool, and this is the command which I fired onto my terminal. You see that it's opened up an IRC port, which is at 6668. And essentially, this is the only time when I understood that this smart bulb, which is connected to my phone, is connected through IRC and it's controlling the whole thing. And to my surprise, even when I'm not at home, I was able to connect to this phone and control through my mobile app because IRC typically moves over the internet as well. And that was an interesting thing to find out actually. So though I was always thinking that my bulb is always controlled through my Wi-Fi access point at home if I'm connected to that, but then that was not true, and it turned out to be a surprise. I carried out the same thing onto the Fire Stick also, and also onto the Google Home. But there is another aspect which I just wanted to find out is like what is the OS. So that's why this -O option is passed here, which can predict what kind of OS is running onto these devices. So the Amazon was actually running the Google Android, though it was not very sure which version of the Android, but at least came to know that it's an Android device, while the Google Home is like typically running a Linux variant, which is like anywhere from 2.6.32 to 3.10. Now, this is a very important aspect because when we actually try to look at devices which are connected to network, we want to know what kind of operating systems they use, what kind of services they expose, because that is an entry point for us to look at whether some malicious users can get into the system or not. So when you get these ports, then you may ask, like, what do I do with these ports? Like, typically, there are good websites over here on the left-hand side. These two websites, which you just give the port number. It tells what is the authentic use of it and what are the other known vulnerabilities or attacks that happen to these ports. Actually, like for example, there was a Trojan or a backdoor on 10,001 port, which is actually open through SCP config. So though this is like used in the authentic purpose in the Google thing, but then essentially what I wanted to tell you is like when you look at these ports, you can also look at previous attacks and then look at whether or not the device is infected with that kind of attack or not. So that was for the Wi-Fi connected devices, but then most of these IoT devices today come with BLE, and there is another tool called as BetterCap. So here's a command called as BLE show, which just like scans around the BLE devices which are around you. Typically, these devices like throw in some regular heartbeats to you to tell their presence. And these were the devices which were there. And you see there is a tick mark here, which also tells you that whether we are capable of connecting to those devices or not. And then if you actually look at uh, uh, when you actually look at the list of systems, these were typically a health gadget which I have at home, where it monitors my heartbeat while I'm doing my exercise. And there is a smartwatch also at home, which is BLE enabled. And those are the two ones along with the Apple phone. But there was one unit which was Microsoft, and I was really wondering what it was. But then I found out that that doesn't belong to my house. And that's what is the fun in terms of BLE. It also scans devices which are in your neighborhood. What is more interesting about this tool is like you can enumerate it and also know much more details about it. And that Domios is the one which I was talking about, the heartbeat sensing like gadget. And you see that it also tells you that which of these registers over here I'm capable of writing. So I'm not showing you here the writing aspect of it, but then what essentially the next step would be like going into these registers and writing into those specific registers data, which would actually start making it behave a little abnormally. Now, this is what was there in the initial stages. BLE had some issues, but then now people have actually improved over it, and now it's like a little more challenging to get into BLE devices. But then if you have some old ones, you still, or sometimes even the newer ones would have these kind of vulnerabilities inside it. If you are very serious about working on Bluetooth, I would recommend to buy this Ubertooth one gadget, which allows you to actually get and sniff all the packets which are in the Bluetooth range. And you can open it in Wireshark tool, which is a very prominent tool that's used by for packet analysis. And you can do further analysis on those packets. The good thing about it is the hardware as well as the software for this tool is like totally open source as such. So you can manufacture it yourself. Now, these are like whatever we talked about is devices which are in vicinity. One which was connected to my access point, one which was connected, it was in the Bluetooth range of mine, so like few tens of meters. But what about devices which are really connected to the internet? So people have come out with search engines wherein it can search for devices which are connected on the internet. Shodan is one of them. And I just put in search for camera over there, and you see that there were like almost 3 lakh results it showed across the world. And there were prominent ports like HTTP and HTTPS that were opened. And they were mainly variants of Linux, if you see on the right hand side, that these devices were running onto. Surprisingly, there are some Windows-based system. And hence these kind of tools give you a very good indicator in terms of if I have a device which is connected to internet, is it vulnerable and is it recognizable by external agency, like external world in terms of the security threat. And similar to that, you have other popular search engine like ZoomEye is another one. And you see that for the same search, it could actually find almost 63 million, 6.3 million devices which are there onto the camera category. They do have some false positive because they typically, like if you want to know how these devices work, it's like this. So they do something called as the banner grabbing or response analysis. So when I actually connect to a device which is opened up a HTTP port, for example, in this case, it's going to respond back with a response giving some more details. In this case, like it could say that it's a Samsung brand, and it also could actually give specific model in terms of. And Shodan and these other sites are exactly doing the same. So what they do is like they ping to these open ports of your IoT devices, and then they get back the response and then try to search for some specific keywords in those responses and say that okay, maybe this is the model which is getting exposed by this device, or these are the services that are opened by the device. So that's more about the devices which are connected to your access point, BLE, or through the internet. So let's see that what happens if I get a device which is like which I have a physical access to actually, and even when I don't have a device. So let's establish a model wherein whenever someone gives us a device, the first thing we would like to do is like rip it open and then see what's exactly inside it. So we do a device disassembly, and then as we previously did, we try to identify what are the components inside this device. Then we try to search out, okay, what are the pins that are available, because those are the vulnerable points and I can push in something there to see what kind of data is coming out or whether I can push in some data through those pins. And then get and if they are following to a set of standard interfaces like I2C, SPI, and things like that, there could, and if they are memory devices, I could actually retrieve these binaries, then carry out reverse engineering, fuzzing to find out any exploits are there, vulnerabilities are there or not, and see whether there are mechanisms for exploiting them. So that's like typical methodology people follow as such. So when you come to the hardware interfaces for IoT devices, like these four are the most prominent ones, like the UART, which is like four wires actually, or sometimes like only three wires, TX, RX, and the ground ones. SPI is very prominently used because a lot of people use this NVRAMs to store the configuration data, which involves sometimes E-square proms and things like that, and which connects to these four pins called as S-clock, MOSI, MISO, and the chip selector part of it. And you will find it very prominently in many IoT devices where there are constraints of like pins for you. You have these devices called as I2C or interfaces, which only takes two. The most dangerous among all of this is the JTAG, because JTAG is like kind of exposing almost every aspect of your device where we can actually read what is there in the memory, sometimes push new data into the memory. Also gives you observability in terms of what kind of chipset is used. I can get insight on the registers inside these devices, and that's why it's like more sophisticated. Just to give you an example of it, this is how we do it. Like opened up a PCB for a device, and you see that there are some 4 pins over here. And whenever you see 3 pins, there are more chances of them being a UART pin as such. And when you look at these components, you can see that, okay, this can be an SPI flash, and then this flash is what might be storing the information about the like program, or even sometimes the configuration data. So you can see there's a wire that's coming in and then going to your PC over here, and that's a 3-wire interface wherein it's connecting to the UART, and you see on the monitor that you'll be able to actually get the console of the Linux box here. So essentially, because UART is like very prominent in terms of getting consoles in IoT devices, a very simple mechanism, and you get access to the device. And it might be sometimes very surprising that there could be some default passwords after you get a login prompt here, and sometimes there may not be a login prompt also for production devices. So like there is a mechanism called as chip off, wherein sometimes you cannot solder the pins out here and you want to read from it. So you like remove that IC from the PCB and put it into and programmer, and try to get what's there inside the, which can then help you in further doing the analysis. So you get the binary version, raw version of bits which is there inside the device, and then you can do further analysis. So there's a very popular tool called a Shikra, a very inexpensive tool which can have it as a part of your lab, and which can actually read information from these interfaces. And the good part of it is it goes through the USB port to your host machine, and you can interact with any of the I2C, SPI UART device, and then talk to them directly using this device. So here's a small example of the same thing, wherein it's connected through a JTAG port, and we know exactly what is the port numbers here. And you can have a Shikra configuration and pull out the entire firmware that's there inside the device. Similar way, SPI dump, just by flashing, like giving this one simple command called as flash from. Over here, I can get the complete dump of the SPI device that's there onto the PCB. But then it looks very easy and cozy, but then that's not true, because when you actually look at these devices, you see that in some cases you have a sequence of 4 bits, 4 pins over here, like VCC, ground, TX, RX, and it like very clearly tells that 4 pins meant the good chances that it could be an UART. But on the other device over here down, you see that the sequence is like TX, RX, ground, and VCC. So the sequence of the pins may not always be the same as what you expect, and there would be shuffling of it, and it becomes very challenging for you that sometimes on the PCB also it's not itched to tell you that these pins belong to what purpose, actually. And that's where like what would happen is you require tools which can scan across and then give you information about what are these pins. To help this, we have a tool called as JTaggulator. Now, JTaggulator has like almost 24 channels. You can push in to any of these devices where you have the pins open, and you can decide what are the voltage levels right from 1.2, actually it's run like 1.2 to 3.3 as such. And it has a mechanism to just scan. So you blindly connect to your JTaggulator the pins. You don't have to worry about the sequence of it. It will detect what is the pin like that belongs to TDI, TDO, or the clock of the device, actually. So you don't have to like worry about doing that. It does a scan and it gives you that information. So this is about like getting the information from the devices from the hardware perspective. What if you have the soft firmware, actually? So what are the ways we can get the firmware is like one which we just discussed, like dump the memory devices, and then you have other options like you can download it from the manufacturer's website. Sometimes you can trace it through the firmware updates by using the sniffer tool like Wireshark. When you open the firmware, especially the embedded Linux ones, you have various components like boot ROM, then bootloader, the Linux kernel, and the root file system. So boot ROMs are something which you will not find it when you extract it, because that's like the ROMs which are burned inside the SoC. But a bootloader, sometimes you'll get trace of it. You will also see the Linux kernel that is being used by the device. And most importantly, all the configuration and the important files which are there in the root file system, which is the core file system of your IoT device. So here's an example of some people being open and then giving you the firmware for analysis. So you can go to their website and download them. And they also tell about security fixes they have performed on the previous releases of the firmware. So what are the tools that are available for us to analyze this? So Binwalk and like there are many other tools that are available. The essential thing is extracting the information from the firmware image and then further looking for additional configurations and binaries inside it. So here's an example of the same firmware which I just talked about. And you see that here is able to detect that. So I'm just trying to use this tool called as Binwalk and is able to actually get hold of the Linux kernel offset in the image. And it's also could detect that there's a squash file system over here, which is nothing but the root file system. And further extracting it, we could actually look at that you have the complete root file system over here for that particular device, including the web interface part of it. So this is one very popular tool called as Binwalk, which can just very easily give you information about the another tool which is very interesting is the form walker, which actually gives you a list of a lot of important artifacts inside a firmware, like configuration files or SSL. Sometimes people hardcode private like SSL files into the private keys into the devices. And that's how it actually gives you much more detail. So you don't have to look at it. So for one of the firmwares, when we looked at, we found this IP address, and when we search for it, it goes somewhere to our style country. Like we do. So that's how you can actually go and look into much more details about the. Here's an example of firmware walker giving you what are the important binaries that are there as a part of your firmware. You just run firmware walker and gives you all this information, which gives you a channel for doing the further analysis. So once you get these binaries, you typically do reverse engineering. So when you say that like you typically have a binary and you want to make it into something very abstract and so that you can analyze it, you have to do something called as reverse engineering. So where you use disassemblers and decompilers for a specific architecture. And why do we want to do this? Because you want to know like what are the libraries that depend on this binary, what are the system calls that it makes, whether I can get the decryption logic by reverse engineering. Are there any hardware, hard-coded credentials inside this device and things like that? So this is all what we can actually get as part of your binary analysis. So there are several tools I would recommend to go through Gidra and Radar 2, which are like open source and very, very prominent tools for reverse engineering binaries. The good thing is they support all major architectures that are used in IoT, like ARM, your AVR, MIPS, and PowerPC. So like it's a good starting point for you to look at these. Another interesting thing is SDR. So in SDR, like typically what people do is they sniff the packets that are happening, like moving around your vicinity, and then they are able to replay those attacks. And these key fobs, which you typically use for opening your cars and things like that, the older versions were very vulnerable to it actually. So people could just, with these 4 commands which are mentioned over here, they could actually capture the information which is pressed when you uh, press your car's key fob, and they were able to replay that and then open your car without your presence actually. So this was all possible because of software-defined radios, and RTL has a very good set of radios which are available for you to look at actually, and they're very inexpensive also. This is a small snapshot of when it was recorded, while when it was played using. To play, you require very sophisticated and costly tools, but then there is some hack which is called as RPI-TX, wherein someone could actually just get a Raspberry Pi over here and connect a wire to it, and they were able to play it just through that actually. So it's able to generate or transmit data onto some specific thing actually.
Sir, 2 minutes, sir.
Yeah,
Please.
So there is something which goes off thing, like wherein people break the specifications. So this is a gun which was made wherein Bluetooth, we always think that it is whenever you are in vicinity, the attack can be happening. But this gun over here, which they designed, was able to actually do it even 1 mile across actually. Also, sometimes you may like to do emulation of devices. So Armex is like one of good option for you, wherein you can emulate a lot of router devices that are available. Here's a list of them actually, and you at the background it uses QEMU for doing that functionality. So essentially, to end up, what is required is like core skills from both the domains, from the domain of security as well as from the domain of IoT in terms of processor architectures or even knowing the peripherals as such. And I would recommend these 2 books to look at, which are very interesting and very specific to IoT security. But if you want to go further in reverse engineering, I would also like to push in these books, though they are very old, but they are like the Bibles for like doing reverse engineering. Some of the references which to get. So that's all I had. I hope this was useful. If there are some few questions, maybe we can take it.
Yeah, I request all the participants to just put it in the chat box so that it will be easy for the speaker to answer your questions. If you guys are not
There
having
was
any
one question. Okay,
yeah,
I have it, Srikanth, here. So
yeah.
there was one question which tells about like, can we use open source tools for scanning and monitoring IP cameras? And precisely the answer is yes. You can use the tools like Nmap, which I talked about for scanning and finding out what ports are open. And that is what I did it at my home. But essentially, you can even do monitoring actually. So the better cap tool which I talked about has the capability to also carry out something, an attack called as man in the middle, wherein the IP camera can then route the information through you rather than directly sending it to the internet.
Yeah. Sir, there is one question from Mr. Rupesh Mittal.
Yeah.
What is the
Yeah.
answer?
IoT security
Yeah.
devices and its coding. Yeah. Yeah, essentially there are a lot of guidelines that are given for C and C++ coding as such. In fact, CDAC Hyderabad also conducted a small webinar on how to carry out secure coding practices. So I would recommend that you can actually look at those practices which are released by like ANSI and many other security agencies. So next time if we do we'll also circulate when we do something like on secure coding practices with the same set of participants. We can attend it.
Yeah, I think more questions can be taken offline.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sir, thank you very much, sir.
Yeah,
I
thank
think
you
you
so
have given a complete insight about a lot of tools. I think most of the tools, we are very new to them. I think it's a good insight for a lot of people. I think they have seen, I think it's the topic, as it said, tools for the trade. I think it was respect to that only. We are all really thankful to you, sir. I think any questions are there from the audience, we can take it offline later. Okay, you can send it to our group so that we can handle those questions. Sir, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
I think now I'll be moving to the next speaker. Yeah, I think Naresh, can you give me the thing so that I can change the slides? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. The thing is, let me introduce the next speaker of this webinar, Ms. K. Nalini. K. Nalini is working in cybersecurity R&D team of SETS as a project engineer. She obtained a BTech in Electronics and Communication Engineering in the year 2013 and MTech in Digital Electronic Communication Systems in the year 2015. She's a member of IETE and published various papers in national and international journals. She has secured stipend from TechIP Government of India. She has also received Sri L.V. Prasad Gold Medal and Pratibha Award for Excellence in Academics during her MTech. Prior to joining SETS, she worked in CSIR for PI Bangalore. Her research interests include cybersecurity, IoT security, and efficient realization of secure network systems. So now I give it to Ms. K. Nalini. I think it's over to you, madam. I think you can talk about your topic. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir. And good afternoon to everyone. Now we are going to discuss about IoT security, vulnerabilities, attacks, and countermeasures. Can you show me the outline first slide? First slide. Yeah. And these are the outlines for now we are going to discuss about like IoT trends, impact, and future projections, and common IoT device vulnerabilities, and what are the vulnerabilities happening in the IoT devices, and some countermeasures for that one, and some security attacks towards IoT, and what are the different like how to defend against the various attacks occurring in the IoT devices. And after that, we are going to discuss about challenges, open issues, and solutions. And after that, we will have some brief introduction about lightweight cryptography for the IoT security. And first, we will discuss about what are the IoT trends, impact, and future projections. Mahesh sir said like what nowadays most of the IoT devices are standalone devices, and most of them are isolated systems. And IoT enabled small technology will bring the economic growth, and also it leads to the safe. An industrial IoT device will provide the wide range of value-added manufacturing services by being the predictable, reliable, and more secure. And retail IoT, if you consider the retail IoT, it will increase the business efficiency, and also it will drive the more sales. Next, we will discuss about some common IoT device vulnerabilities like insecure components. Like, for example, if our IoT devices, most of the IoT devices are having the outdated components, like which will lead the vulnerabilities, and so that attacker can easily hack our system, and they will inject some malicious code into that one. So we have to update the IoT devices patches so that in order to overcome the attacks. And after that, unnecessary open ports. As the Mahesh sir said, there are a lot of open ports which we can't know whether it is open or not. So by using the Nmap tool, we can check whether what are the opening ports in the IoT devices. And after that, insufficient logging mechanisms, like most of the IoT devices won't have the logging mechanism. So it is the main drawback of main vulnerability in IoT devices. And also inadequate privacy protection and encryption. There is a poor data management capabilities and lack of encryption on the shared data, because most of the IoT devices won't have the encryption capability in order to provide the confidentiality. So it is lacking in most of the IoT devices. And after that, lack of automatic patch management. As we know, most of the systems won't have the patch. For example, if some new vulnerabilities are coming, they are not updating that patches. So this is also one of the main vulnerability in the IoT device. And after that, hard-coded password. Most of the IoT devices are having the hard-coded password and default password, which will lead to the brute force attack for the attackers. And how to address the IoT device vulnerabilities we will discuss. So, like these are the some uh, like defending mechanisms to defending against the vulnerabilities in the IoT devices. Like for example, if you are choosing any network like Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, means you have to take care. You should be careful in choosing that devices. And after that, we have to understand each device accessibility settings and permissions. Like you have to set some permissions, like for video and audio you should give some permissions, so that attacker can't able to access your camera and microphones. And after that, we have to take care of the network segmentation. If you are using network, then you have to separate that one by the zones. And that is also one of the like how to overcome our IoT devices, because if you use same network for all the like personal data and for office networks, if you use same network, then it may uh, create a chance for the attacker to attack your system and do some malicious function. So take care of that one. And after that, main thing, like as Mahesh sir said, we have to change the default password, because it is the main reason so many IoT devices are attacking, because of the default password. So we should change the default password, and we should use the secure settings like default configuration settings and all. We have to change instead of using the default configurations, we have to choose the will be the security attacks. Srikanth sir?
Yeah, I think your voice was lost in the middle. So
Yeah.
you want me to go to the previous slide?
Yes, sir. No, sir. This is fine. Yeah, now we are going to discuss about the security attacks. Like security attacks are mainly classified into two types, like passive attacks and active attacks. In passive attacks, this cannot be sensed by the any means. Like in wireless links and all, these are more susceptible to the passive attacks, and these are against the confidentiality. So if you consider the wireless links, like most of the wireless links are susceptible to the passive attacks. And what are the attacks happening in passive attacks are like eavesdropping, node destruction, node malfunctioning, node outage, and then traffic analysis. In eavesdropping, it is also known as the passive information gathering. Like it might reveal useful information like physical location of the specific nodes, message identities, like timestamps of the device, and almost anything that is not encrypted. As we said, most of the IoT devices won't have the encryption on the shared data. So this is the main drawback. Because of that one, so many attackers are doing the eavesdropping attack. So next one is the node destruction. Node destruction is nothing but the physical damage to the device. Like because of electrical surge and physical force, it may lead to the physical damage for the IoT device. So it is called as a node destruction. It is also one kind of attack by the attackers. And after that, node malfunctioning. This happens actually due to the faulty sensors. Like if you have any sensor which is not working fine, then it may lead to the node malfunctionality, and also it may lead to the DDoS attacks also. And after that one is the node outage. This occurs when a node fails its regular functionality. For example, if a cluster head have a network fails at regular operation, then the protocols have to be strong enough to mitigate the negative effects of this kind of things. Like if cluster node is if cluster node is failed, then we should take care of that one so that it may not lead to the node outage. So we should choose the alternate sensor or alternate IoT device in order to overcome the node outage. And after that one is the traffic analysis. The traffic pattern of a network may be as valuable as content of data packets for adversaries. Like if they have the traffic patterns of a particular network, then they can use that one for the malicious activity. Like if they get the like topology can be derived for analyzing the patterns. Like if they know what protocols you are using and what are the traffic you are sharing from the sensors. So if they get the data from the traffic analysis, they can easily attack your device. So this is also happening because of the traffic analysis. And these are the passive attacks covered in security attacks. And after that, active attacks. Actually, active attacks will happen in 4 layers, as Mahesh Patel sir said. Application layer, IoT will have mainly application layer. Middleware layer is nothing but data processing layer. And after that, network layer and perception layer. Perception layer is also not nothing but the sensing layer, which deals with the sensors. And we will see one by one. In application layer, code injection will happen. Code injection is one kind of attack happening in the application layer. Code injection will be like introducing some malicious code into the system by exploiting the programming errors. Because of programming errors, the attacker can easily inject malicious code into our IoT devices. So this is called as a code injection attack. And after that, buffer overflow attack, the attacker writes a sequence of data to the specific area so that it may lead to the memory out of memory. So it is nothing but the buffer overflow. And after that, sensitive data permission or manipulation. This is also one kind of attack which refers to the illegal access and manipulation of sensitive data, thereby violating the user privacy. Like if usual it was like without your permission, it was taking your sensitive data, so that it will perform further attacks. So it is nothing but the sensitive data permission or manipulation. After that, phishing attack. And we all know that the phishing attacks are like happening through the emails. Like the attacker pretends to be a real user to the legitimate user, so that he or she can obtain the sensitive information about the users, like passwords and credit card details. And these are the phishing attacks are happening nowadays in so many mails. So this is also one of the important security area we have to concentrate on IoT devices. And after that, authentication and authorization. Like authentication plays an important role in protection of IoT security and privacy. For example, apps can download malicious payloads when updated, and also attackers can use it to the remote control a device. Like they can get the access of your device, and then they do whatever they want to do, and they can also inject some malicious codes and scripts so that it can lead to the malfunctionality. So these are the attacks happening in the application layer. After that, we will go for middleware layer, which is nothing but data processing layer. In this layer, what are the attacks happening are like a flooding attack in the cloud. Like it is also like one of the DOS attack, which like they will send some like a bunch of code, a bunch of request for the server, so that it cannot it cannot provide the service to the particular user. So this is nothing but the flooding attack. And after that, we will go for cloud malware injection. It is also nothing but like injecting some malware code into the IoT device. And also after that, signature wrapping attack. Like it happens in the cloud, which uses the XML signature to ensure the integrity of the service. Like the attacker modifies the eavesdrop message, and then without invalidating signature, they can communicate with each other. So it is nothing but the signature wrapping attack. And it is happening mainly in the cloud area, like SOAP protocol. If you take the SOAP protocol, like a simple object access protocol, most of the signature wrapping attacks are happening in the SOAP protocols. And after that, web browser attack. Browsers cannot generate the XML tokens. This is the main drawback of web browsers. So by using this one, attackers can easily exploit this weakness to gain the access without the authentication. So proper like encrypted XML tokens, if you take care of the proper encrypted XML tokens, then we can come back, we can like avoid this kind of web browser attacks. And after that, next attack will be the SQL injection attack. SQL injection is nothing but by embedding a SQL statements into the input data. For example, if the database is not having the particular like secure design, then the attacker can easily inject their SQL commands into the database, and it may lead to the without having the authenticated passwords or usernames, they can easily hack our database. So it is nothing but the SQL injection attack. And after that, in the network layer, these are the attacks happening in the network layer. In the network layer, we will have the most common attack is the DOS attack. We all know that, like even Sarit sir told and Mahesh sir also explained about the DOS attack, like which is the main MeitY is the one of the DOS attack which had happened in the 2016. And after that, Sybil attack. Sybil attack is nothing but a node in the system presents a multiple identities to the victim node. It will send the multiple identities so that which will allow the victim node to execute an operation multiple times. So it will lead to the defeating redundancy and leading to the longer routing distance. So if, for example, if from source to the destination, two nodes want to communicate means, then what the malicious node will do is it will send some multiple identities to the source node, so that source node will send repeatedly that data. So it will lead to the longer routing distance. So this is nothing but the Sybil attack. And after that, sinkhole, like hole attacks like black hole, sinkhole, worm hole. We will discuss these three later. And sniffing attacks. Sniffing attacks also nowadays, like most of the sniffing devices and apps to obtain the network information and then execute the valuable data for the further attacks. These are also mainly happening in the network layer and replay attack, and we know that like man in the middle attack also, so many nowadays so many man in the middle attacks are happening in the IoT devices. And after that, we will go for perception layer, which is nothing but a sensing layer, which includes the sensors and all. So unauthorized access to the tags, if you go for RFID tags, the attacker may malfunction the tag as a authorized one, so that he can get the authenticity of that RFID tag and he can act as a legitimate user. So this kind of unauthorized access to the tag. And after that, tag cloning. Tag cloning is nothing but, for example, if it is happening between the RFID reader and then RFID tag. So what it will do, the attacker can obtain the relevant information through the reverse engineering. For example, RFID cannot tell difference between the original tag and then compromised tag. So it will think malicious tag as a original tag, and it will identify, it will sense that data as a original data. So that is happening in the tag cloning. And also same RF jamming also is kind of tag cloning only. And after that, spoofing and then sleep derivation attack also happening in the most of the RFID tags. And after that, we will go for some small example happening in the IoT botnets. This is the example for IoT botnets, which is happening in the IP cameras. For example, if you take the attacker, center one is IP camera. Attacker can able to access the IP camera via the open ports. As the Mahesa said, we can easily detect what are the open ports in the IP cameras or IoT devices by using the Nmap and NetStat tools. So by using that one, what they will do, what are the open ports, they will use that open ports and get access to the IP cameras, and they will use the command to inject the to inject and then download the website. So after downloading the website, they will get the control for the control and command server. So from the command CNC server, they will easily attack. They will easily inject. Either they will exploit the other IP cameras. Otherwise they can easily run the commands of the victim's IP camera to perform the DDoS attacks and uh, like for example, if you take the MeitY attack also happened like this only. They got the access for the IP cameras and they injected the malicious software, and also they had hacked the DIN server by using this mechanism only by getting the control from the CNC server. And after that we will discuss about some attacks like as I said, a sinkhole attack which is happening in the network layer. Actually, a sinkhole attack compromises a node which attacks the nearby nodes to make a route traffic through it. Like it will act as a original node, but it is not a original node. But it compromises the node as like it is having a shortest path to the destination node. So it was the it is also called as a sink, which is creating the sink further from source to destination. That's why it is called as a sinkhole attack. And here if you see, here SNs are nothing but the sensor nodes and BS is the base station. So cluster compromised node here, actually from the base station, uh, all the sensor nodes has to send the right side. If you see the right side figure, sensor node has to send the data to the base station. So instead of that one, because of the compromised node, what compromised node will do is it will attack the traffic to that particular node, and it will get the data from all the nearby nodes, like all the sensors nodes, like which is shown in the left side nodes. So it will get all the information from the like sensor node instead of legitimate user. And after the advanced version of the sinkhole attack is nothing but the black hole attack, wormhole attack, and also gray hole attack. We will discuss them. And next will be the black hole attack. And here a malicious node may drop all the packets that it receives for forwarding. For example, as I said, sinkhole attack, like a malicious node will attack the nearby nodes, like it is by acting it as a legitimate user. So what it will do, if you see the figure here, S is the source node, and it has to send the packets to the N. N is the destination node. So what it will do, it will give you the route request. R request is nothing but the route request, and R reply is nothing but the route reply. So source will send the route request to the neighbor nodes, so that you are for searching for the routing. So whenever the neighbor nodes will have the route for the destination, they will send route reply to the source node, so that it can transfer the packets to the neighbor nodes. So here black one is nothing but the route request, and yellow one is the route reply. So after reply from the neighbor nodes, it will send the packets to the neighbor nodes. So here A is the actual node, like it is the actual route. From S it has to travel to A, and then D, and then E, and then N. But instead of that one, what black hole did is it has fake reply. Like it is telling like it has the shortest path to the destination node, so that it can attract all the traffic and it can drop all the packets from source to destination. That's why here, after getting black color indicates like route request. First source will send the route request to the node M. Then M is nothing but the legitimate node or black hole node. So what it is giving a fake reply that it is having the shortest path for the destination. So it is transfer when it transfers the packet, then it will drop all the packets. So it is nothing but the black hole attack. So after that one will be the wormhole attack. In wormhole attack, what it will do is here S is the source and D is the destination. From S to from source to the destination, it will create a tunnel which is having a two nodes from it will have a two nodes, like between the two nodes it will create a tunnel which is nearer, one node is nearer to the source and another node is nearer to the destination. So here M1 and M2 are the malicious nodes which is having the malicious nodes, and remaining are the legitimate nodes. Here, it has to send the package to the destination through N4, N5, N6, and N8. So instead of that one, as the wormhole, and it is uh, telling like it is having, and it acts as like, it will tell like I had the shortest path, then you have to like, it will attack the traffic from the source. So source is sending the packets from the M1 and M2. So here M1 and in between the M1 and M2 we will have a tunnel. So it is nothing but the wormhole attack. It will create some tunnel kind of thing in order to drop all the packets, and it will forward only selected packets to the destination. It is nothing but the wormhole attack. Even like this only selective forwarding will happen. In selective forward attack, what it will do, it will send only the selected packets, and it will drop the remaining packets. That is happening in the selective forward attack. Like it is nothing but a gray hole attack. And after that, we will see some reasons why these attacks are happening. Like as we know, MeitY is the biggest malware attack which has happened in the 2016. And why this MeitY attacks happening is like main reason is nowadays number of IoT devices and number of people are using them is also increasing, and it is one of the main reason for the attackers to do the malfunctionality. And second reason is the most of the IoT devices are vulnerable and they have the poor secure mechanism. So that is the main second reason for the attackers. And in many cases, attackers have been able to force the uh, uh, access to the IP cameras by using the brute force passwords, and also using the insecure config. As we said, most of the IP cameras got access because of the brute force guessing passwords, and also they have the insecure configuration. These are the main reasons for the attackers to do the MeitY like attacks. And after that, there is and another reason is like there is no dedicated infrastructure such as like gateways and all for the IoT devices. It is also a big concern to the scientific community, and also more specifically for the application areas like confidentiality, integrity, and availability. These are the like prime importance for the IoT technology, so that most of the researchers has to concentrate on this one. Like providing these three together is a main like challenge for the researchers. And if you take on an average like 25 vulnerabilities are detected per device, and also 60% had the vulnerable interfaces and firmware, and also 70% did not encrypt and communications at all. For example, that's what we are telling from the starting. Like most of the devices, like 70% of the devices won't have the encryption mechanisms to share the data, and also 80% fail to request a secure length password for authentication. For example, we had the passwords, but those are not secure length passwords. So these are the main reasons, and it is the like it was taken from the some research paper, these numbers and all. And after that, we will discuss about some defending, uh, how to defend against the various attacks. Like next we will take like what are the different mechanisms included in to fight against attacks. Like the attack type like physical attack. Like one of the proposed solutions from the research papers is secret key generation using PUF. Actually, PUF is also one of the we are doing to generate a key in order to prevent or mitigate the physical attack. And what PUF will do is it will generate a secret key by using the signature mechanism, and it will use the some response and output mechanism to generate the unique signature. And after that, for eavesdropping, we can use the link layer encryption, and also key pre-distribution for the eavesdropping, and also key distribution is also one of the main challenges for the researcher. Even we do encryption also, we have to distribute the key in a secure mechanism. It was also one of the main challenging area. And after that, jamming DOS and all, like these are the some, like even wormhole attack is also a attack, but we can use the same wormhole technique to jam the DOS attacks. Like we can by creating a tunnel between our, like whatever, if you take internal network and external network, you can create a tunnel between the internal and external, so that other outside people can't able to access the internal network. By using this wormhole technique, we can prevent the jamming DOS attack. And also tampering. For tampering, we can use the tamper resistant hardware. And also for a black hole, in order to prevent the black hole attack, we can use multipath routing and mesh network topology, and also like active trust routing. We will discuss how to detect and how to defend against the black hole attack next in next slides. And after that, for node replication, ID based public keys, like we can use for each public key we can create ID, so that it can't repeatedly send the packet to the particular node. So we can use this technique. And after that, we can use for sinkhole, we can use some secure routing algorithms for to mitigate the sinkhole attack. And for wormhole attack, we can use some location based keys. And after that, we can use some identity verification and indirect validation for the civil attacks. And after that, gray hole, as I said, gray hole is selective forwarding attack. It can select only it can select and forward only few packets to the destination, and it will drop the remaining packets. And for that, we can use the multipath routing. And also using the usage of source authorization is also one of the technique for mitigating the gray hole. And also for section hijacking, we can use lightweight algorithms, like lightweight block surface we can use. And for authentication, we can use generating a unique digital fingerprint using the PF. As we said, PUF is also one of the solution for defending against the physical attacks. And also to provide the authentication, we can use the PUF is one of the solution for that one. And after that, we will go for challenges, open issues, and solutions on the cyber security of the IoT. And these are the challenges included in the IoT, like data integrity. Data integrity is one of the main challenge in the IoT devices, like data integrity, encryption capabilities. Like we have to encrypt the data before sending from one device to another devices. And also we have to take care of the privacy issues. And also, like if you're connecting to the outside world, like Wi-Fi and all, you have to take the privacy issues. And we should follow the common framework for all the IoT devices, so that you can reuse the code for further implementation of another another. If you want to implement something like other thing, we can reuse the what code before we have used. So by maintaining the common framework, we can achieve that one. And also automation. And we have to update the IoT devices patches regularly. And we should IoT device is the main challenge IoT. Open issues. Yeah, open issues is nothing but like a heterogeneity, scalability, communications, energy consumption, location privacy, self-awareness, and interoperability. These are the main open issues in these IoT devices. Heterogeneity is nothing but like most of the IoT devices will have like we are integrating all the devices together. Like we are using gateways, we are using sensors, and different devices will use the different families and different technologies. Like gateway will have different family. It is from different family, and sensors are from different family. So we have to provide the heterogeneity for the IoT devices. It is one of the main open issue in the IoT devices. And we have
Nalini, 2 minutes, Nalini.
Yeah, okay. And we have to provide the, like these are the energy consumption also main area we have to focus in the IoT devices. And next we will discuss about the black hole attack detection. As we said, source node will send the route request for the neighbor nodes in order to get the route for the destination. So whenever the neighbor node will have the route for the destination, it will send the reply, like route reply. It is having the route to the destination. So after getting the route reply, it has to check in the destination. We have to check in the route reply. We have to check, and if it is a malicious node, what malicious node will do? It will give the reply as a high sequence number, and it is having the least hope count, so that we can identify what is the malicious node and what is the legitimate node. So by identifying the route reply, sequence number in the route reply, we can easily detect which is malicious and which is the legitimate node by using that one. And this is the next one is the flow chart. Like if you see here we have to start the network. So after initiating the network, here while initiating the network, it will source node will send the route request to the neighbor nodes. After getting route request, it will neighbor nodes will send the route reply to the source node. After getting route reply, the route reply has the destination sequence number beyond the threshold, then it is a malicious node. Then we will, if it is S, then we will classify it as a malicious node, and if it is no, then we will classify it as a normal node. Then we will send the packet to the destination. So this is the mechanism to detect the black hole, like by seeing the sequence number in the route reply. So after that, this is a small introduction about the lightweight cryptography. Next, cryptography. Actually, in cryptography we have two kinds of cryptography, like symmetric key cryptography and public key cryptography. As we know, symmetric key cryptography will have the single key, whereas public key will have the public key and secret key. Two keys it will have, and AES and DS are the example for the symmetric key cryptography. And after that, for public key cryptography, like RSA and Diffie-Hellman protocols are the example for public key cryptography. And next one will be the security mechanisms, and these are the main three security mechanisms in order to secure the IoT devices, like encryption, digital signatures, and hash algorithms. For like if you want to provide the confidentiality for the IoT device, we can use the encryption, and whereas if you want to provide the authentication for the device, we can use the digital signatures. And after that, we can go for hash algorithms in order to provide the integrity protection. Next will be the why we are going for lightweight cryptography, and where we are using conventional cryptography is used in the servers and desktops, like smartphones and all will use the conventional cryptography, whereas lightweight cryptography will be used in the embedded systems, RFID tags, and sensor networks. We will use the lightweight cryptography in order to because most of the IoT devices will use the less memory to store the data. So that's why we are going for the lightweight cryptography. And the present is one of the next one will be the present. Present is the one of the lightweight block cipher, which is a standardized in 2007, and it is an SPN network. It follows the SPN features like substitution and permutation. It will have the three layers, like a key addition layer, substitution layer, and permutation layer. And it will have the block size of 64 bits and having the key size of 80. There are two variants of key sizes for the present, like 80 and 128, and block size is the 64 for the present cipher. Next one will be these are the as I said, plain text will be given to the SBox layer. It will have the SBox layer, and P layer is nothing but the permutation layer. SBox is the substitution layer. So a plain text will be given to the SBox and PBox layer. After adding the key, it will generate the cipher text. It is part in the encryption, and after that one will be the decryption. In the decryption, we will receive the cipher text, and it will be converted to the plain text by using the inverse SBox layer and inverse permutation layer. And next will be the summary. I will summarize whatever the topics we have discussed, like security related initiatives need to be considered, we have to consider the scalability, transparency, and also reliability issues while we are while when we want to provide the security for the IoT devices, and also not only taking care of the higher architecture security, we have to take care of the low level security also for the IoT devices. And IDS intrusion detection system is also one of the techniques in order to fight against the zero-day attacks and sinkhole attacks, and to defend against the sinkhole and wormhole attacks. IDS also is one of the technique to fight against them. And one of the main best tool for IDS is the SNOT. We can use for SNORT. We can use that one for the IoT in order to detect that kind of zero-day attacks. And yeah, these that's what and also we have to take care of the default password and default open ports. We have to check whether open ports are there. If any open ports are there, we have to close them by using tools like Nmap and Netstat. So by taking this kind of minimum security tips, we can fight against the attacks, different attacks happening in the IoT device. Yeah, that's what. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Sir, any questions? If you can put it in the chat box. Any questions you have? Yeah, Nalini, I think thank you very much for your insight on this session. It was really useful for all the participants, I hope. And now I give the mic to our Director, Madam Lakshmi, Madam, to introduce Kamakuti, sir, who will be taking the next section.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Right.
Kamakuti, sir, are we audible, sir? Hello? Hello, sir? I think sir is not able. Sir, we are not able to hear you, sir. Hello?
Hello.
Hello? Sir is speaking, I think not able to. Hello? Hello? Now we are. Hello. Yeah, sir. Now we are able. Yeah, we are able to hear you, sir. Okay. Let me briefly introduce you, then you can have your session, sir.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So very good afternoon to all of you. We are honored to have Professor Kamakoti to deliver the keynote address. Thank you very much, sir, for kindly accepting in spite of your busy schedule. Let me give brief introduction of Professor Kamakoti, sir. Professor Kamakoti is the Professor of Computer Science and Engineering Department at IIT Madras and also a member of the National Security Advisory Board. His areas of interest include computer architecture, secure systems engineering, and VLSI design. Sir completed his BTech in Computer Science and Engineering from University of Madras, followed by MS by Research and PhD at Department of Computer Science and Engineering at IIT Madras. Prior to joining IIT Madras as a faculty, he completed 2 postdoctoral assignments at Supercomputer Education and Research Center, Indian Institute of Science, Bengaluru, and also at Indian Institute of Mathematical Sciences, Chennai. So his research interests are software aspects of VLSI design, cluster computing, high performance computing, algorithms, data structures, computational geometry. His work was well recognized, which is evident from the awards he received, such as Abdul Kalam Technology Innovation National Fellowship 2020, ISEA Techno Visionary Award 2018, IBM Faculty Award 2016, DRDO Academy Excellence Award 2013, and IITM Young Faculty Recognition Award 2007. So this is he is also one of the architect of Arogya Setu solution, so which is very much helpful during this COVID-19 period, and also the indigenous microprocessor development program. So we are honored to have you, sir, for this particular event today. A warm welcome to you, and also thank you for your kind acceptance to deliver the keynote address, and also all your guidance and support extended in various initiatives at CDAC. Request you to kindly deliver the keynote address, sir.
Thank you, madam, and thank you for accommodating me. I should have done it first, but
no problem, sir. We are privileged.
Thank you very much for accommodating me. And yeah, can you just allow me to share the content? I'm not able to share.
Shrikant, can you share the screen?
Yeah. I think Naresh.
Yeah, I got it. Yes. So, are you able to see my screen?
Yes, sir. I think.
But the full screen required, sir.
Yeah.
No? It is fine. Yeah.
Fine, sir.
It's fine, sir. Yeah.
Okay. So thank you very much, CDAC and SETS. And we are all part of the ISEA program, the Information Security Education Awareness Program. And so this is in its the end of the second phase, and we are moving to the third phase. And we have also seen electronics grow with the program. And there are more and more challenges that are coming up. And embedded security is one very important challenge that we need to handle. We can't just relax. It has already become very prevalent. I'm going to show you some videos and some very interesting things that are happening there. And it will be interesting until it hits us badly. So we need to be extremely careful. It is, I can call it as the corona of the electronic electronic area, right? So the cyber attacks that are happening can be spreading more fast than the corona spread that we are seeing today in the country. So we need to take a lot of care, and what are all the different vaccines that are available, and how do you take preventive measures. That's what I try to cover in the next 45 minutes given to me. I'll just take 30-35 minutes, and then we'll have 10 minutes for questions to answer. Okay. So electronics is coming very closer to human lives. There's no doubt about it. And we need to secure not just this strategic infrastructure, like in the case of a conventional war, where all our strategic infrastructure, we say no-fly zone, etc. But here we have to also secure the civilian infrastructure. As we are seeing in this pandemic has taught how important is the network for us. And if the network suddenly, if there is a denial of service attack, where this communication is stopped, then we are in a very bad situation, right? Today, more than 75% of the population are working from home using the internet. So networking, the devices, the electronic devices, etc., are becoming extremely crucial even for our economy and a day-to-day living, right? And when we look at these electronic systems, we see billions of lines of software executing on billions of transistors. You just take your latest mobile phone, the iPhone 10. You have a processor, a quad-core or octa-core processor, ARM processor inside your mobile phone, which could run to billions of transistors. And you take Android. Android will run to at least 1 million lines of code, including all the apps and everything that are on part of it. And so the system is so complex that we don't have any idea about, no clue about what could be the malicious things inside the hardware, what could be the malicious things inside the software. In the hardware, something malicious which can go and make the hardware do something which you don't want it to do, we call it as a Trojan, while on the software we call it as a backdoor. And and all these are black box to us. We have not gone through the Android code, and if it is an iPhone, the iOS, it's a closed source. We can't even go into the source code also. And if it is and then we have so many backdoors here. There can be backdoors there, which essentially can mean that the system can be compromised. And we don't know whether the system can be compromised or not. And that system is going to be very close to your human life. And that makes the whole job very complex and very important. And today we have gone one era where one person was hacked and then they steal money from him or do. From this, that today when we look at the landscape of the cyber attacks, it's now becoming massive. It is going to be on an organization. The latest thing that you see is that many of the stock exchanges in New Zealand, Australia, and those area regions are currently targeted. There is a denial of service attack on them. So the entire landscape of cyber attacks has changed over a period of time, and that is where we are witnessing, and that is what we need to have. Right? So the attacks are also becoming large scale. It's not on a single person, but on a community or an organization, essentially creating more chaos and more economic loss and more loss of reputation. Okay, so these are some very important points that we keep in mind when we start looking at embedded security. Now, this is still becoming more and more complex because our communication network, the spread of a cyber, like the spread of corona is directly proportional to the human contact. The spread of this cyber virus, this cyber attacks, the electronic corona is directly proportional to the bandwidth that is available and the number of devices that are available per unit square area, the population or density of electronics that you put in, say, a square kilometer. Now, with the advent of 5G, which is not just an 4G plus, in the sense that why do you need 5G? It's not like I want to watch an HD TV movie sitting at my village, right? It's not just that. You can do that, but it is more than that. 5G is looked as an enabler for Industry 4, right? Industry 1 was enabled by steam, Industry 2 by electricity, Industry 3 by ICT and electronics. The Industry 4, today we are looking at advanced robotics, 3D printing, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, so many things. The Industry 4 is going to be enabled by these cyber physical systems. And these cyber physical systems are going to be basically driven by a very high speed communication network. And that is what we see as the 5G. And the 5G will have things like there will be considerable amount of human to machine communication and machine to machine communication. For example, autonomous car. That's a far-fetched dream, but there are a lot more of industrial automation that you see where there is going to be a machine to machine communication. When there is a machine to machine communication, the important point there is we will not be having a human intervention, and that makes the whole problem much more complex from a security perspective. So the things have to be reliable and secure. And if there is going to be an issue with security, there should be enough checks and balances to arrest so that there is no maximum damage, to minimize the damage and to restrict the damage and contain the damage. So this is very important. And so we are now getting a very high speed network, and the number of towers that are going to be within a particular given region will be at least 10 times than what you are seeing in 4G, because that is the level of speed that we are looking at. And all these things put together is going to become a complex thing. So we are poised to enter into a new era where we are seeing more and more electronics coming closer to our lives, and we are seeing high-speed connectivity between these electronic elements. And that, essentially, if you don't take proper care, and this will pave way for actors, for the malicious actors to come in and literally come and flood our system with malware and denial of service and different types of attacks. So this is where we set the scenario, and let me move forward from that. Now, how does the 5G look like? There are some small antennas and edge devices here, and then there are certain what you call as 5G small cells and 5G antennas. Then you have an aggregator type of an environment, which are the massive towers, and then it goes to the cloud where there is a lot of control that is happening. So this is the end, and as you see, the edge devices are not just mobile phones, but they can be embedded systems. It can be cars, it can be watches, it can be intelligent glasses, it can be antennas, it can be whatever sensors, many varieties of sensors that we are going to put. So from this sensor, we are collecting data through some small cells, and from there it goes to a large base station, and from there it is going to go into aggregate and go to a backhaul network, and finally reaches the cloud. So this is the entire 5G setup, and this is how any cyber physical system will be set up. And now, if I want to really have security in these type of an environment, we need to take care of the entire spectrum here, starting from the edge devices to the small cells, to the base stations, to the cloud. Everywhere we need to look at security in a very, very big perspective. Now, these are things. So I just mentioned about certain attacks, organizational attacks. So this was a simple attack on Baltimore. It was a ransomware attack. One day morning, Baltimore administration wanted to open the systems. None of the systems opened. They all said, pay this much money, pay this much ransomware ransom, and I will basically enable you the system. So this is how the entire attack has happened. So this is a very simple, very interesting example of how the attackers can come. And this entire administration system is controlling many of the city environment, right? It is controlling probably the traffic signals. It can control many things. So once you have a smart city with a cloud which is administering the smart city, and somebody comes and attacks the cloud, the entire city becomes full. Okay, from a smart city it becomes a full city. So that is something that we need to address. And this is an example of how such an infrastructure can be. It is a real example. This has happened, and people say that there was considerable amount of money paid back to get back the system in place. Now, as I just told you, so when we are engineering such large-scale cyber physical system, now we have an edge device or a edge sensor. Then there are certain intermediate data aggregation that happens, and then there's a cloud analytics that is going to happen, and we have to completely look at comprehensively. We have to look at the security from this end to that end. So that is the real challenge. So embedded security, we say security is not just you go have a device and you go and put some security there. That doesn't solve the problem. If there is a loophole at any one of these places, however secure your edge device or end devices, the entire security can be compromised, and essentially the job is not done. The job of securing your data is not done. So it is very important to have a holistic view of this entire stuff. And now I'll present some interesting challenges and interesting things that have happened in this area. Now, everywhere that you see, from the edge device, mobile, to the aggregation device, it could be a router, to a cloud server, this is basically there's a compute stack. And what is this compute stack? The compute stack essentially has 5 stages. There's a digital hardware. On top of it, there is a micro architecture. We call it micro programming. On top of it, an operating system is running. So in this case, Android or whatever, Unix, OS, Windows. And then you have a system programming level, or what we call as a compiler level or assembly language level, which actually uses some of the operating system routines to actually execute programs, right? So you have system calls, for example. And then there are the high-level application programs. So at least 5 levels are there in a compute system, right? And so the first 2 levels are hardware, the microarchitecture and the digital hardware, and the remaining 3 levels are software. That is why many of these systems, many of the operating system, many of the architecture supports multiple privilege levels. Privilege level 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. So the privilege level, some privilege level at a higher privilege level, a lower privilege level cannot access the higher privilege level, its data or the code. So that level of privileges are made available at the hardware, basically to ensure that you have sufficient amount of demarcation and isolation among the other top layers, like your operating system, your system programming level, and application programming level. So this is how the entire system stack is built. And what is very interesting is that each level that we see is so virtualized that I don't really need to care about anything above me or below me to actually work in a particular level. For example, if I'm working at operating system, I don't really bother about system programming nor the something below that, because the interfaces, the APIs, or what sometimes we call it ABIs, application binary interfaces, or the application programmer interfaces, the APIs and the ABIs are so well defined that you just assume that that ABI will work and you start building things on top of it. The point is that a person working at a kernel level, or person or at least some higher levels of operating system or at a compiler level, do not understand what is happening at the levels below it or above it, and that ignorance has actually costed quite significantly in the sense that it has caused it has basically caused the ignorance has basically caused quite significantly, in the sense that the hackers actually use this ignorance of the higher layers about the lower layers to come and hack into the system. For example, if I don't know how the stack is handled by the architecture, and I just write programs assuming something, and that particular ignorance is exploited, and we have a bunch of what you call as stack-based attacks, right? So this is one example. So this is how the whole compute stack is, and it is a collection of virtual machine, and that one virtual machine is working in isolation with other virtual machines, and people working or programmers working in that machine doesn't know about the other machines, and that ignorance is actually capitalized by the hackers to basically go and hack into the system. And that is the most important thing that we are seeing here. Now, when we come to a typical embedded system processor, now these are all the points of vulnerability. So I got it from Microsemi. Okay, they are very good leaders in embedded system development. Okay, so what does an embedded system processor has? It does a embedded system has. It has a processor, right? So it can have Shakti processor, it can have Vega processor, it can have many things with processors. Now, what can you do about a processor? First and foremost, I can do what you call as active side channel. What is a side channel? A side channel, I think you would have heard a bit about this in the previous two sessions, or you will hear about it in more detail down. So I'll just give you a very simple thing, simple definition of side channel. Side channel is, I don't really, suppose I want to attack a crypto algorithm, I don't attack the mathematics of the algorithm, nor do I attack the program. I just keep measuring something. For example, I want to leak out the secret key. Now I know that the processor will consume more power if it is processing a 1, and if it is processing a 0, it will consume less power. So just by measuring the power, right, I can find out whether the processor is processing a 1 or a 0. I'll not have access to the register or the hardware that is storing the key, but just by measuring the the power, or by measuring certain electromagnetic behavior, I can go and find out whether the processor is processing a 1 or a 0. Okay, so this is passive. I just observe and then do. This is called passive side channel, and it's also called DPA, differential power analysis. What you see on the rightmost bottom of this. Any processor, we can do this type of an attack to find out what is the secret thing that the processor is internally processing. And then there is also something called active side channel, where you do a glitch attack. Glitch attack in the sense that you basically send certain signals and study the delays, and basically from that you can certainly find out certain things about the hardware. So side channels will be covered in better detail, I'm sure, as a part of this course, or if not, the next course. But certainly, today, design of side channel resistant embedded system processor, that is becoming very, very important, right? So that is one part of the story. The next part is, all these systems are cyber physical systems. All the embedded systems today need to be cyber physical, and that means it is connected to the network. So you will have a bunch of network attacks, attacks that target a protocol that you are following. So it can be a Bluetooth protocol, it can be a Wi-Fi, it can be a LoRa, it can be several of these protocols. Then and then it will also say your network stack would have a bad implementation. So this they basically use to get a foothold or into the processor, and then they can inject persistent malware. Persistent in the sense that you inject it once and it stays for quite a significant amount of time. How do you get inject a persistent malware? I will give you some examples as we are going inside. On the other side of the spectrum, this is towards connectivity to the cloud, etc. This is an edge device and this is connecting to the cloud. On the other side, you have some bus. You have a PCB, you have a bus there, so you can put a man in the middle and monitor that bus. And you have a lot of ports that are open, like you have open ports like UART, JTAG, and many of them sometimes you don't reset the password. It is factory set and brought. So the factory password will be open, and then people can log into the system and basically get control of the system. And then there is all these systems, especially embedded systems specifically, will have this non-volatile memory. The reason is that the memory has to be non-volatile because there can be a power disruption. These are going to work in hostile environments, and so we like to maintain the status of the system. So when you have this type of non-volatile memory, then that means at any point of time there is always a thing that we could go and read the object code. We can read the code. We can read the data from this non-volatile memory. That is, if the system is, even when the system is shut down, now you can take this non-volatile memory, and if it's not part of your on-chip, I can take it out, and then we can basically read out the data. And then there is this can be replaced, it can be reflashed, like and the non-volatile memory will have the code that is executing, and the typically in an embedded system, it will have mostly it can be bare metal embedded C programming, and so you can go and replace this with a malicious software. The software will be on the flash, and if you can replace it, you can reflash it through some means, then you are going to have a malicious code that is injected into the system. So these are all different stuffs here. So the vulnerabilities that are existing are sort of constant, right? So there were, when you look at what are the vulnerabilities, what are the causes? There can be data leaks, there can be human omissions which has caused these vulnerabilities. There can be lack of vulnerability management. I put a large sensor network without actually, monitoring or firewall to basically access that, and a lack of knowledge, as I mentioned, about different things, and insider threat. There can be somebody inside who leaks password. Oh, he's changed that. He's changed that. Okay, so these are all some of the stuff. And the other thing is that these are all real stuff that can happen, but there are also black markets where they sell email password harvesting. They find out for different email password, and many of the time you use your email, and normally you may use your own password, same password. And then phishing attacks and IP theft, fraudulent domain. These are all some of the black market stuff. Now, how do you handle them? There are three important ways, right? So we have open source intelligence, and then a lot of hacktivist forums, vulnerability databases, and then there are a lot of underground forums. We talk about it, and then social media, blog, and user content. So these are all some of the tools or forums that are available, or what you say, some of the facilities that are available to address these type of vulnerabilities, right? So, so the main thing is these vulnerabilities do exist, but to actually use this vulnerability to and effectively get out data, hackers actually spend quite a bit of time. So the point now is the level of sophistication of these cyber threats and cyber attacks are increasing, and the number of threat agents in the cyber world is also increasing. The magnitude of the growth all over the world is very, very devastating, and there is an increasing threats from various sources, and that is also ever changing. The source which can actually hack you, that also changes. So what you see is a nice graph on the right hand top, where you are looking at multiple generations of how a virus has grown. If you look at generation 1, which was late 1980s, virus attacks on standalone PCs that affected all business and that drove antivirus products. In mid-90s, the attacks from it came from the attack from the internet affected all business. So then from the antivirus, we went for a firewall plus antivirus. And generation 3, by the early 2000, the vulnerabilities in application affected most businesses and drove intrusion prevention systems. Intrusion in the sense that by the time we had a lot of signatures of different attacks, so we could make intrusion prevention system rather than just a firewall. There is an intrusion prevention system that could be made. In approximately 2010 is the generation 4 of this. These were just generally what you call as payload attacks.
It's not fun to have your 2-ton SUV's brakes act just as you're parking in front of a ditch. Okay, hold on tight. Hold on. Oh. That's what I've learned from Charlie Miller and Chris Balasek, pair of hackers who have spent the last...
So are you able to see the video and listen to the sound? Srikanth? Anybody else? Can you just answer my question? Are you able to see the video?
No, sir. We are not able to see, sir.
You're not able to see the video?
Yes, because you have shared only PPTs, so it is playing.
Part of the PPT? No, it won't. I'll just...
You share the YouTube.
Yeah, are you now able to see the video?
No, sir.
Now?
No, sir.
1 minute, just a minute.
Yeah.
Just a minute. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, sorry, I'm just sharing. Yeah, are you able to see?
Yeah, sir. Now it's
Yeah, I'm just paying. Are you able to see the sound?
It's not fun to have
yeah, sir.
SUVs packed just as you're parking in front of a ditch. Okay, hold on tight. Hold on. That's what I've learned from Charlie Miller and Chris Balasek, a pair of hackers who have spent the last year developing a piece of software that can wirelessly sabotage this 2014 Jeep Cherokee. It hasn't been altered in any way. There are no devices attached to it. But like many thousands of Jeeps around the world, it can be remotely hacked over the internet through a cellular connection to its entertainment system that would allow someone to take over its steering, its transmission, and even its brakes. To demonstrate that, I'm going to act as today's crash test dummy and drive it on the highway here in St. Louis, while Charlie and Chris hijacked its digital systems from Charlie's house miles away. They wouldn't tell me what they had plans, but they assured me that it wouldn't be anything life-threatening. Remember, Andy, no matter what happens, don't panic. It's not the first time I've driven a car while it's being attacked by these two hackers. But in 2013, they were in the back seat. Their laptops were wired into the vehicle to a port in its dashboard. Now they're sending the same sort of attacks remotely, and I have no idea what they might do. He's going as fast as I've seen him. So first we're going to turn the fan on. Yeah, let's turn the fan on, see if he even notices. All right, something just turned on, all the fans and AC and stuff. I didn't do that. The trick started small. Oh my God. There's a picture of Charlie and Chris in tracksuits that just appeared on the dashboard. But as I drove down the interstate, things started getting unpleasant and very loud. Can't turn it down. We have air conditioning, blasting, the music is blasting, and I can't see any of the windshield wiper fluid. Okay, do it. Do it. Kill the engine. So we're killing the engine right now. It says part actually I stomped on the gas, but the Jeep slowed to a crawl. It says 47 miles an hour, but I turned on my hazard lights, but I was still stuck in the right lane with no shoulder to escape onto. Guys, stuck on the highway. I was panicking. He's not gonna be able to hear us with that radio. It's so loud. Guys, I need the accelerator to work again. The accelerator will work. It won't work! You're doomed. Seriously, it's dangerous. I need to move.
So this has been one major attack, as you see. This is not something very simple. And imagine this attack has been happening with the knowledge of the driver. But if this happens without the knowledge of the driver, and it happens to every car that is going on the highway, then or even say a bunch of 10 cars that are in close proximity, imagine the amount of chaos this can create. Right. So this is one important stuff that I wanted to show here. The next stuff is much more interesting. We will just look at that. This is a very short video on how a water system in Israel got hacked. Right. So I'll just go to that. So as you see here, so you see here, this is the Israel had issued a security alert of its water supply being hacked. They had to change the passwords for all internet connected systems. So these are some of the very, very important attacks that we have seen in the past, in the very, very recent past. One that we showed on a car and another on. So this is no more a science fiction. Okay, so this is a reality. I just showed these two videos just to show and convince all of you that this is nothing that we are talking as a fiction movie, but these are all reality that could happen and that will happen over a period of time. Right? So how do we handle this? One of the important things that is needed today is what we call as an IO assurance boot. So what is an IO assurance boot? Many of this persistent malware actually comes and stays in your boot record. So whenever you boot the system, the malware starts executing first rather than the actual boot sequence, boot code, and the malware takes ultimate control over the system, and it can attack the system at any point of time. This is also called as rootkit. To handle this, many of the modern processors have what we call as high assurance boot, wherein there is a signature that is put. The signature is done by the manufacturing agency, and that is basically freezed and put as a non-tamperable entity inside your processor. And whenever you start booting, your boot code is actually digitally hashed, and that hash value and this are compared to see that what you boot is exactly what you intended to boot, or what the manufacturing facility has put as a boot code. So that means your boot code is certified to be not vulnerable, not changeable. And if that is done, so that is the most important part of this. And so the high assurance boot gives you, this is a sequence of this high assurance boot, where there is what you see on the left hand side is the hardware. There are some device fuses which will have these keys, which is a binary sequences, and then the system image that you see on the top is basically subject to a hash generator, which generates an hash, and that is compared with the hash on the device fuse, and it's compared. And if it agrees, then the system boots. If it doesn't agree, then the system essentially stops. So the system even will not even boot. So by this, we ensure that the basic code, the first code that comes into existence for the provider, the moment you switch on the system, that boot code is indeed secure and certified. Now this boot code which is certified can certify the next code, and say it can do the same thing for that, because this is certified. The next code, again you do this hash and see whether it is proper, and the next code can certify the next code. Like this boot code will become, this particular infrastructure will become the root of trust, and then you build a chain of trust from this. And this is how secure systems are being built. The other part is that when we communicate, we need a lot of encryption, and many of the encryption algorithms are power consuming and cannot be part of embedded systems. So there is a lot of research that is going on in lightweight cryptography. And the most important thing is that these embedded systems, many of this cannot have big OS support. Okay, they can have some real-time OS, and so it is essentially the hardware that needs to support a lot of security features. And many of the embedded controllers, even the Shakti microcontroller that we have designed, also has what you call as physical memory protection, wherein we can assign different privilege levels to the different physical memory, and so that code executing with one privilege cannot access the physical memory, certain parts of the memory. By this, what we create is we enable red and white zones, red and green zones. The red zone is actually a secure zone, and the green zone or a white zone is something which is less secure. And so by this, we build what we call as this privileged microarchitecture. The privileges are there, and the physical memory protection is also there, that different parts of the physical memory can be given certain privileges, so that some privilege user can access them, some cannot access them. By this, we build in a protection infrastructure as a part of your microarchitecture. So the next thing is identity management, and so all these devices should have an unique identity, and we have crores and crores of devices that are going to come up as we look at. So one of the things that is being researched, I think the previous speaker also talked about, is the physically unclonable functions of PUF, right? There are many ways by which you can get a PUF. For example, there are A, B, C that you see on the left-hand side to figure. One thing is that you pass a signal, the same signal into onto two parts, same signal onto two parts, and collect them at the other end through a flip-flop. We are using a D flip-flop. The difference in the delay here can cause different values to come on this D flip-flop, and that can be used, and that is a characteristic of every design, and then you can use it as a physically unclonable function. And similarly, the same thing with several inverters and a NAND gate. Again, you are seeing pulses and count this pulse, and if it is greater or lesser, then you give a 1 or 0. And similarly, this buffer, two inverting things. So I give a 0, it comes 1, 1 becomes 0. So this type of an oscillator can also give us certain physically unclonable feature of the device. The moment you put a puff here, then you give it the application authentication server gives a challenge, and this gives a response, and the response to challenge is compared to show whether to identify the device. And this is physically unclonable function, and there's a lot of need for it in embedded systems to ensure that I have an identity. If it's not there, then I don't know which device is talking to me, and that's very important for any cyber forensic that we need to do post a cyber attack. So we need to do quite a bit of work. I just wanted to cover and touch different points here. We need this Atmanirbharta in this design. We need to make it much more secure. And if you don't do it, then this is a wonderful cartoon. I got it from one of the internet sources. And that says what would be our state if we don't do that correctly. And with this, I wind up my keynote and I open myself to questions. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Sir, thank you, sir. There is one question from Mr. Subhendu Karmakar. Sir, is it possible to build any antivirus for Raspberry Pi or any other IoT component?
Yes, the antivirus essentially comes just not as an antivirus, but as a much more holistic thing. The antivirus actually uses some amount of OS functionality. And in many of these things, if there are no OS, and we in a Raspberry Pi, if we are going to do basically an embedded C, then this antivirus sort of thing has to be built in as a part of your embedded C code. So many times what happens is you start doing secure C coding itself, and that will stop you from getting into any of these attacks, right? So rather than looking at an antivirus, the antivirus is we do certain secure coding principles we follow so that the attacks may not be rectified. That's the thing. So that is how we start handling these attacks at the embedded system level. Next.
Sir, yeah, one more question from Ms. Pooja Rani.
Yes.
What are polymorphic attacks?
What are?
Polymorphic attacks, sir. Polymorphic.
What are polymorphic attacks? I'm sorry. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. Sir, I think we can take up one last question, sir.
Yes.
He's asking, can we do side channel analysis of AES or observing power traces from home without using FPGA board, but using any simulators available?
So the power analysis actually requires an access to the physical access to any device, right? Otherwise, doing a DPA might be extremely complex unless you have an access to the setup remotely, right? So, for example, ultimately I need access to the hardware. I can't do it sitting at a remote unless I have certain power monitoring tools set up inside the system and access to that system. That means I already have hacked into the system. Okay, so this is the important thing. So a physical access to the device is necessary for us to actually do a DPA, or I need a remote access to certain power monitoring tools in the vicinity of the system, right?
Yeah. Sir, thank you, sir. I think we'll stop taking the questions now, and I request Dr. Sharath to give the vote of thanks to sir.
So there's one question here: what lightweight algorithms are better in attack-resistant point of?
Yeah, sir.
I think you should look at elliptic curve cryptography (ECC), and that gives you a set of.
Yes. Sir, I think we'll take the questions offline, sir. I think I request Dr. Sharath to give that.
Sir, it's very great talk, and it's a great opportunity for all of us to listen to you. You have covered very vividly, right from the hardware to the applications, intermediate layers, virtual machines, and because IoT is a technology of hardware and software and getting connected to the networks, hardware software networks. So and also the high assurance boot is something new to all of us, and specifically creating a trusted environment in the IoT thing you have covered. And also you talked about the critical infrastructure like water systems. If they get attacked, what is going to happen in future, and also the cars could be attacked. So these are all you have given some demonstrations. And also you talked a very important thing that the physically unclonable function and its importance in the IoT security. And also you have covered the side channel passive and active attacks, and how do we make the side channel resistant IoT devices by giving a concept of security by design as an important aspect. So it's really heartening to listen to you, right, including the lightweight cryptography aspects. Thank you very much. It's really honor for all of us to have you here, finding your valuable time and meeting the people. I think there are close to 700 to 1,000 people listening, at least directly registered, and beyond, they all got benefited with your talk. And I take this opportunity to thank ISEA also, where you are also spearheading in the management of ISEA, and Chas Murthy and Lakshmi Iswari and the team Srikanth and Mahesh Patil, they all put their efforts, and I want to thank them on behalf of the workshop for day one's successful conduction, and especially Professor Kamakoti sir, you are a mentor to all of us, to SEX as well as CDAC. We look forward to your whole association beyond this and all our things. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. I think one question on polymorphic. Yes, I just got. So this is basically another form of mutation attacks. I just got the terminology is also changed. Okay, so what is a mutation attack? The mutation attack is one which actually changes its mutate itself after it finishes. For a simple thing is in memory attacks. The entire code is loaded and it basically into the memory. It is not even into the disk, and the attack is basically done. And once the attack is done, this code, it is sort of a self-replicating code which basically cuts down some feature or includes another feature, and as it goes from one system to another system, basically it changes its color, so it changes its signature, it changes so that it can evade any of this antivirus sort of attack. So we call it as a mutating software or a self-changing software. That is a code that can change itself, right? So this is what we term it. And now I also see a recent term called polymorphic. I think this is the same as that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, sir. Yeah. Srikanth, can we? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you all participants for joining us today. So the thing is, I think there are some questions for Miss Nalini if she can take up for 5 more minutes because some YouTube questions have come up. Then we can close the day and we can join tomorrow by 10:45. Okay. I think one question I would just is Nalini, you are there? Yeah. There is one question that how the threshold for destination sequence number.
Yeah, actually, when source is sending the packet, it will have, like every node will have the some trust value, sir.
Yeah.
Hello?
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
trust value
Please.
will be assigned to all the neighbor nodes. A source will send the route request to the neighbor nodes. Only the authenticated node will give the route reply saying
Nice.
that I have the trusted value, and also it will append the sequence number. So only the malicious node, what malicious node will do is it will assume like it is a high sequence number and it will append the high sequence number to the source node.
Yeah.
If it
Here
is
one.
if it is a like if it is a authenticated node means it will send the less sequence number and less trust value. So when route reply comes to the source node, it will compare that one with the threshold value. So if it is a malicious node, that threshold will be more when compared to the normal node. So that's why source node can identify it is a malicious node or normal like normal node.
Yeah. I think. Yeah. Thank you, Nalini. And I think we'll close the session for day one. And
Yeah.
I request all the participants to join tomorrow by 10:45 so that there won't be any glitches in the thing. And I hope you all will join tomorrow and make the event successful. Okay. I think tomorrow we have three speakers. One eminent speaker from industry. He's Mr. Arvind Tiwari. He'll be giving a keynote. And later we have two speakers. One is Mr. Haribabu, Associate Director, CDAC Bangalore. So he'll be enlightening us with a lot of trusted elements. And finally, we'll have one session from Kunal, who is a scientist in SETS Chennai. So these will be the three sessions tomorrow. I request all of you to join by 10:45 tomorrow and enlighten yourself with the sessions. And finally, after the sessions, we'll be having some small assessment. Based on that assessment, you will be getting a certificate of participation for all the participants who clear the assessment. Okay. Thank you very much. We'll meet tomorrow by 10:45. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Srikanth. It's a wonderful organization.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Okay, sir. Then we are all signing out. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Very much. Thank you, sir. Thank you.